Imagine this. You are on a trout stream and see the largest brown trout you have ever seen rising to a dry fly. What is the first thing you do? Would you choose a fly that's sitting high on the water or something a little more lower in the surface? Would you first cast above the fish, to the side, or right on top of them? Dry fly fishing can be challenging, but today we have a guest that has been hunting fish for over 25 years, and you're going to get his best tips so you have more success fishing dries this season. This is the Wet Fly Swing Podcast, where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare for that big trip, and what you can do to give back to the fish species we all love. Hey, how's it going? I'm Dave, host of the Wet Fly Swing Podcast. I've been fly fishing since I was a little kid. I grew up around a little fly shop and have created one of the largest fly fishing podcasts in this country. I've also interviewed more of the greatest fly anglers and shop owners than just about anyone out there. Mark Reisler, Headhunters Fly Shop owner and dry fly fanatic, is going to help us hook up with more fish on the surface this year. You're going to hear about his 10-minute per day casting routine and why you should do this. We're going to talk about the yarn rod. We're going to find out why he thinks most anglers are doing the Hail Mary cast and why you should avoid this at all cost. And you're going to get his top dry flies and some of these that you've never heard of before. Plus, we're going to find out why a town of 50 people has 3 fly shops. Okay, let's get into it right now. Here we go. Mark Reisler from headhuntersflyshop.com. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing fantastic, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for putting this together today. We're going to talk a little more into the Missouri. We've been focusing. I'm starting to think about getting back out. We drove through there this summer, didn't stop and fish anywhere in Montana because we were heading to Wisconsin, but we crossed a lot of famous rivers. And, you know, obviously the Missouri is kind of your back door there. So we're going to talk Missouri. We're going to talk trout, dry fly fishing and all that here today. But let's jump into how you got into it first, like fly fishing in the shop. What's your first memory of fly fishing?
Oh, shucks. I grew up in a fishing family, outdoors family. So fly fishing as a young kid, I remember the most success I had was when we were trolling around in high mountain lakes in British Columbia with lead core lines and trolling and getting them. So that was my first really memory of fly fishing, and some Yellowstone Lake stuff as a wee kid, 4 and 5 years old, are my first recollections. I know we had Fenwick glass rods. I remember that, and Flieger reels, Medalist reels. That was my earliest memory, but I grew up in a kind of an outdoors family in the Skagit Valley in Mount Vernon, Washington is where I'm originally from. So I was ushered in, I guess, by, as many children were, by force.
Right. When did you realize that after all the childhood stuff that you love this, and it wasn't by force, you wanted to do this forever?
Oh, golly, as many fishing guides and successful ski bum and fishing guides, I dropped out of college and went skiing for a living when I was 20. And after that first winter skiing at White Pass in Washington, at Crystal Mountain in Washington State, I thought to myself, shucks, I'm going to need a summer gig as well. So I moved to Packwood, Washington, and was at outside of White Pass, Washington. There's some small creeks there in the summer, and I drove home and got one of those Fenwicks and came back and started that road of learning how to fish as a kid, but an accessory. Yeah, Dad did most of the heavy lifting. So I was 20 years old when I recognized, boy, this is really, really fun, and I want to dedicate more of my time to this. So I was 20 when I kind of came back around, almost 21.
Almost 20. And it sounds like your dad, was he into fly fishing or just like everything?
Oh, fly fishing, everything. We had several boats, bay boat, river boat, lake boat, float tubes, all that stuff. So, yeah, absolutely an avid angler. And it really Dad was primarily focused on that river, on the Skagit River.
He was. So Skagit, and this is for what species were you guys focusing on?
Oh, salmon and steelhead.
Do you remember that? Because Skagit's gone through some changes, over the years. What's your memory of steelhead fishing on the Skagit?
Oh, I don't. I just cold and boring.
Yeah. Right, because you weren't into that. That's kind of similar to me. I mean, I didn't get into steelhead till a little bit later, like hardcore. And I remember, but you had to be, the conditions weren't always perfect, were they?
No, I still am not. I have steelheaded, but I wouldn't consider myself a steelhead angler, Dave.
Yeah. But your dad was he out there swinging flies, or was it like?
Oh, yeah. Swinging flies from, as early as I can remember. Yeah, he retired early and went steelheading and swinging 200 to 225 days a year for 20 years in a row.
Wow.
After he retired, at 52. So, he retired and really dedicated himself to swinging the fly. Yeah.
So retired at 52. That's pretty young. What did he do for a living?
He was a dentist.
There you go.
Yeah. So, worked Monday through Thursdays. I wanted to be a dentist when I was a kid, but
What got you out of that?
well, the recognizing you had to, there's a lot of education and you couldn't skip that part.
Right. Yeah. The education is kind of interesting because it's not everybody's cut out for, right, lots of college and stuff. And I always looked at that too. That's going to school for 8 years in college would have been a nightmare for me. Right. Is that kind of how you looked at it?
Yeah, I think kids should go to school. I think adults should go to school. Kids in college, I'm not sure it always meshes. It certainly did not with me at age 18. That wasn't my path at that time.
Yeah, nice. So basically, yeah, your dad's hardcore. He's 20 years of swinging, and then how did the Montana? And maybe let's just fast forward a little bit. So you're now talk about where you are now and how this whole thing came to be with the shop.
Oh shucks, I after that first ski season, first ski season at White Pass, I needed kind of a summer gig. I needed something to do. And so, like I said, I went home and got a Fenwick, promptly broke that by falling out of a canoe drinking, and then bought a $10 fly rod at a swap meet in Packwood, Washington. So I was fooling around with that, and I remember that I bought my first fly line was $10 and a 30-footer. From an SA, a 30-foot, I think a level line. Of course, struggled and did immediately find a couple of fishing mentors, which I'm still an advocate of today. Is boy, you got to have a mentor or two to help you along and to script that path. And I found a couple of those. Pat Ward was my father, but Pat Ward, and after the ski season and a couple months of fishing locally, he said, "Well, why don't you go to Montana?" And I said, "Montana." And my Reisler family is from Montana, so I have been to Montana a bunch, but just not on these fishing excursions like I certainly do now. And so I drove over to Missoula. He sent me to Missoula from western Washington there. And in the spring, it was all blown out and was in the Missoulian Angler. Paul was the owner at that time. So this is in May of 1992. And Paul said, "Well, why don't you go to the Missouri?" Drug myself in there and I said, "Oh, sir," I said, "to Missouri." I said, "I don't think I can make it to Missouri, sir. I'm in that old '87 Subaru out there, and I have $40 to my name." And he said, "Oh, it's in Montana." So he sold me the Montana Gazetteer, the Montana Angling Guide, which I still have. It's a big round book by Chuck Fothergill, and these pull-out maps, and it told you what kind of flies to use and lures and where to go. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I drove over to Missouri here, 2 hours outside of Missoula, and I drove across the Wolf Creek Bridge and looked at that river and said, "Holy, that's
right."
I mean, I was fishing pocket water and little baby freestones, put and take fisheries in western Washington. So this was pretty awesome and amazing to me. And yeah, I stopped on the bridge. There wasn't anybody around, and looked at that. It just stopped the car and turned off the car and lit a cigarette and smoked a whole stick. Yeah, it was a little different time. And looked at that and I said, "Holy cow!" There weren't any rocks to throw behind, so I was immediately scared. It caught one fish in the first week. In the first 30 minutes, I just learned how to double rig with a gold-ribbed hare's ear off of a elk hair caddis, and got one on a hare's ear underneath a caddis, and then did not touch one for the next 7 days. So I went home and started checking out books in the library about tailwaters and Spring Creek, and the evolution kind of started from that moment.
Wow, that's it, God. So you pretty much see this giant river and struggled to get
struggled, yes.
That's cool. So and then when did I guess continue fast forwarding. So when did the fly shop idea come to be?
Oh, well, yeah, years down the road in 2008. So I moved here in the fall of 1990, September 1st of 97. That was May of 92. So fast forwarded 80 to 100 days a year here on the Missouri, a couple 120-day years, spring and fall camping and learning and enjoying and catching some and not catching a lot. And I moved here I did a little more school at Montana State University in Bozeman, and I didn't want to spend the summer there, so I moved to the river really full-time in 2000 is when I started guiding. So actually, I worked for the trout shop with my competitors in many capacities, as a commercial tire, as a shuttle driver, and then ran their kitchen. And I kind of had enough of that in 2000. I quit and started guiding in July 13th of 2000. Then 2005, became a Montana outfitter. And then the trout shop decided to sell in late 2007. And my current business partner, John Arnold, and I jumped ship. We were the two outfitters for the trout shop, and we jumped ship. And we were in the Keys in the winter at that time. So I did several winters in the Keys after the ski business. There wasn't any money in the ski business. I might as well be, standing on the bow of a flats boat.
Yeah.
Warm. And so John and I were in the Keys for that winter, and Trout Shop was up for sale. We were the two of the four outfitters, worked for that outfit, and we opened a shop in April 4th of 2008, right in the beginning of that recession, and never looked back is really how we got here.
So you start right in the recession, and actually probably not a bad time, because once you survived it, things got better. Is that kind of how it looked?
Absolutely. We weren't afraid. Everybody else is pulling back, and we're pushing forward. We self-financed the shop. We did not take any investors.
Yep.
We had opportunities to do that. We decided, shucks, we don't have any money, but at least we get to make the decisions. And shoot, Dave, we just finished our 17th year.
Right.
It's a retail operation. Yeah, we have 39 rental properties and 25 full-time guides and staff of nearly 50 in the summer. And we're open every day. We're the most open fly shop in the world, Dave. We're open every day but Christmas.
Wow, and even Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving morning, we do 8 to noon, 8 to 1 historically. And we've done, Christmas Eve as well. A lot of fellas and gals like to come out and sneak in a little fishing before the afternoon affair.
Amazing. Yeah, so you've built this, the operation. Does it feel like, over the time it's slowly you built this, and then you look around and you're like, wow, I've got this giant operation. Did it come on you quick?
No, it didn't. My business partner, I give him all the credit. He is absolutely our long-term planner and our master planner. And one of my roles is media and execute some of these plans. And I'm absolutely in awe that we finished our 17th year, and we've got long-term wonderful staff. You can't succeed without surrounding yourself with wonderful, successful people, and we've done that. We have some staff members have been with us since day one.
I want to jump into a little on the fishing, because I think it is a big destination. I've heard lots of great things about it. I've never fished it, but I think today we're going to shed some light on kind of what it is, and it's a big tailwater. But maybe let's think. I think this episode is probably going to go live in kind of December, maybe later December, January. What's it look like throughout the year? Let's just start there. Is there some pretty good fishing throughout the year? Are you guys fishing it year round?
Yeah, Dave, this is a 12-month resource. That one of the greatest assets we have here is that it is a 12-month resource. Some of the water does freeze on the lower river, but the upper river is available and fishing wonderfully all 12 months. So we're in, December, Christmas time. A lot of swingers out there. This is a great trout spey. This is a river designed certainly for the spey rod, and the trout spey rod fits into that exceptionally well. Skagit lines right now, and sink tips and streamers, leeches and flashy streamers. That gets us through the winter. It's really a nice bridge of the steelhead in the situation that the steelhead rivers are in. A lot of guests have, with their I go steelhead fishing every fall with, with 6 fellas, and that is no longer an option. So a lot of those guys have just transferred over here and just done a trout trip, a swing trip, an exclusive swing trip here. So that and nymphing for the winter, the two primary with anything pink and deep and slow. Water temperatures are at that 34, 35, 36 degree range here in another month. And you can find those fish in deep, slow buckets. But the spey thing absolutely drives, November through mid-March.
Yeah.
We sell more spey rods than we do single-handed rods.
Oh, you do? Oh, wow. So and as the trout spey, has that, just the last few years really picked up, or you guys been doing that a while?
Oh, shucks. We were day one. Yeah, so we have, had lines and rods in there that nobody would touch, or and certainly did not sell in those early years. When we were using 8s and 7s and then 6s and 5s. And, a 3-weight is our primary now. No, we've been on board. My business partner, John, is a speycaster from way back. I didn't pick it up until I was forced to here, other than fooling around a little bit with my father back in the day with a long head. I didn't ever make a successful cast. And so the evolution, we have been, followed that evolution and participated in that as well with this great spey resource. Yeah, I have 1,000 spey lines in stock.
Right. So is spey, you said the kind of the fall through and why is that? Is that just because there's not a lot of dry fly action, or why is that a good time?
Yeah, there's some midge action. You can get out some midge action right at daybreak in the winter. You might be done fishing at 8:45 or 9 o'clock. Sun's been on the water for an hour or something like that. So pre-sun on the water for the rest of the winter. Yeah, that really starts picking up in some mid-February. You can have a pretty good midge period through the spring, but that would be the first kind of dry fly stuff you would see. Then the Baetis in April. When water temperature gets to 42 degrees, and the nymphing, gets in April and May and June is just world class. It's a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, it is.
Just fantastic. The fish are waking up. We have just such an amazing amount of fish per mile. The latest upper river numbers for rainbows are 7,000 catchable rainbows per mile, which is our historical high. There's never been more trout in the Missouri River than right now, Dave.
Really?
In the history of time. Our historical average is about 3,000, and that's post-stabilization of flows in 1983. So pre-83, they would, raise and lower the water every day for peak power generation. In 83, they stabilized the flows, and you can only raise or lower the river within 10% of the previous day's flow. And a federally mandated low, suggested mandated low, so a little oxymoron in those words, but is 2,800 CFS. So absolutely managed as a trout resource, recreation resource, post 83. So nymphing is just fantastic in the spring. And then, like I said, there have never been more trout in the river.
When it comes to high quality flies that truly elevate your fly fishing game, drifthook.com is the trusted source you need. I've been using Drifthook's expertly selected flies for a while now, and they never disappoint. Plus, they stand behind their products with a money-back guarantee. Are you ready to upgrade your fly box? Head over to drifthook.com today and use the code SWING at checkout to get 15% off your first order. That's Drifthook, DRIFTHOOK.com. Don't miss out. Don't let the chill keep you from your next big fish. Heated Core's Next to Skin heated base layer is your secret weapon for staying warm and comfortable during those early morning fishing trips or late season adventures. Engineered with advanced heating technology, this base layer keeps you toasty all day long, ensuring you can focus on what really matters. Gear up with the Heated Core base layer and make every cast count this season. And it's in the 8,000, something like that per mile?
7,000 rainbows, the last year's numbers were 1,400 catchable browns at, again, 10 inches or better, and then a bundle of whitefish.
Wow.
And et cetera. Yeah. And
you guys are just, maybe paint the picture of where you are for those people around the country. You're in Craig, right, Montana?
We are in Craig, which we call the epicenter,
Yeah, because it described that again. So you've got the Missouri coming out with these big or smaller famous rivers joining to create, but you have this section.
Sure, Madison, Gallatin, Jefferson, and then, of course, the Jefferson made by the big old Beaverhead, Ruby. So just really incredible world-class waters create the Missouri. So, all the Missouri's children are great rivers as well. And then, so 100 miles from the confluence at Three Forks, upriver from us, goes through several lakes. And then we get to Holter Dam, and Holter, 35 and a half miles of fishable water here below Holter Dam. Craig is 7 miles below the dam, and the Craig is located right on the river. So Rivertown, the shop's 100 yards from the water. There aren't any shops on the river, physically on the river, but of the 6 fly shops here, they're all within a stone's throw of the river. So really a cool place to have a fly shop.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right on. So you guys do a lot of kind of drift boat. Is it kind of day trips?
Our typical trip, of course, is just a normal guide trip, 8 to 10 hours. I would say that most of our guests are 3-day guests, of course, and then some 1 day and some, a lot of, again, 5 and 6 and 7 day. And 50% of our guests, over 50% of our guests live in Montana. Over 50% of our guests are 25 to 50. So a little bit different operation here. Like I said, 6 fly shops here. There are, there's got to be 50 outfitters here now. And that, of course, has increased over time. But the user days are about the same as it was 25 years ago. Our user days, ebb and flow a little bit with the fishing. When the fishing gets harder and there's fewer fish in the river, fewer people come. And when the fishing gets easier and there's more fish in the river right now, we see these influxes as well. So there are up and down in the visitation. But I would say in the last 25 years, visitation is up. And the type of angler that visits has morphed in the last 25 and 30 years, really. It is one of the most noticeable changes we've seen here locally.
Younger folks now?
No, I just finished my 25th year guiding about 2 weeks ago, so I'm pretty excited about that. I think I have another 10 in me.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but the type of angler has changed. Part of modern fishing is entertainment. Our mission statement was information, education, and customer service for all things trout fishing. Now it is entertainment, information, education, and customer service. Entertainment is the number one goal for a visiting angler now. That angler has less experience and just wants to bring out the family or a couple friends or somebody from work or something like that and enjoy the day. Yeah, learning I think is less of a priority than it was 25 years ago. Entertainment, absolutely the number one objective of your modern angler that we see. Previous to that, an angler had fished the Madison, he'd fished the Delaware, a couple spring creeks, and some private stuff like that. Been to Argentina, and then he says, "Oh, I heard one of my buddies said I should come to Missouri. It's such a great place." So that's how the angler used to arrive. Now the angler arrives, with modern so there's social media and advertising and stuff that is certainly much more prevalent, and dissemination of information via the internet has allowed us to discover so many other places that we would not have without those tools.
Right.
And we do see the effects of that. So, a common line I've heard in the last 10 years, which I would have never heard before, which is, can we stop all this learning stuff and then get back to the catching?
Right. So that's your typical guide trip, right? We talked about that too, because we do some schools, and we focus this more of the education. Like, you're going to bring skills away that you can use in other areas, but the guiding, is more like, hey, I want to catch some fish today. Even if I don't become the greatest fly angler and learn everything, I'm going to have a great day. Is that kind of what you're talking about with the entertainment?
Oh, yeah. I am of the education. I can't guide you if you don't want to learn. That's just, and I don't do that anymore. I'm a dry fly only guide now with long 18 to 25 year guests. But I totally understand that. It's analogous to getting in a car and wanting to be a Formula One racer. Not, I don't want to be a Formula One racer. Do I like to go fast? Yes. It's like having, playing a little basketball pickup game with your friends. Does that mean you want to be a professional basketball player? No, it just means that you like shooting the ball around with a couple of your friends.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
So that's how in my head, I've kind of set that up. And I agree with that kind of thinking.
That makes sense.
You don't have, just because you fly fish does not mean that you want to be a great dry fly angler. In my mind, of course, you should be, but
what does it take if somebody does want to become a great dry fly angler? What does it take to get there?
Oh, number one, you have to have the rod in your hand. You have to sacrifice. You have to have the rod in your hand. You have to practice, and you need to spend a lot of time, a lot of hours with that rod in your hand. And practice is the number one, the right kind of practice. Short 10-minute sessions. I still practice almost every day. I don't practice every day, but I do practice 5 days a week with a practice rod, the yarn rod.
Oh, you do?
Absolutely.
Right. So you still use the yarn rod to just make sure you're not making any errors and things like that?
Oh, yeah. Shucks, I don't get out there and fish, as many days as I used to. And so for me to remain sharp, I'm really good rowing. But yeah, to keep sharp, I don't spend that 8 hours out there fishing or 4 hours a day. But I do spend 10 minutes on fundamentals. I did the same thing in the ski business. I would do in the wedge turn or the snowplow turn in the wedge Christie, all 7 movements are in that turn, just like the parallel turn. And in the cast, you need to have all those fundamentals, and fundamentals are what gets you through when things get difficult. So I am a proponent of just practicing fundamentals. That's all I do. I do the same routine now for 20, 30 years for 10 minutes a day.
What is that routine? Can you walk through that a little bit?
Absolutely. First, I do a horizontal cast. Macaulay Lord of LL Bean is who introduced me to this when I was taking my level 2, my casting certification through FFF, not the master, but the first one. And so I followed that ever since. So horizontal cast, just one direction, just to the left and then to the right, so you can see it in front of you, just half the cast. And when you do it correctly, the line straightens out to the left, and you move the rod to the right and stop it. And when you stop the rod tip, the line goes to the right. And then I do that over my head. And then I do link that together. So I'm making false casts over my head at a normal, like 30 feet would be the, 25 feet with a fly pole, but with the practice rod, obviously it's much shorter. Once I do just kind of the normal cast over my head, false cast over my head, and then I do, reach cast left, reach cast right, pile cast, tuck cast, positive curve, negative curve, and I just run through that whole regimen. And then I finish with long cast. which is a little more fun when you have the fly rod in the backyard in the park. It's not quite as fun with the yarn rod, but that's how I finish. So I just do 10 minutes of fundamentals.
Wow.
And repeat. Yeah, that's it. And that keeps you sharp, man.
That's so good. I mean, that's an awesome tip for anybody listening, because I think that, we all know casting is important and stuff, but I think probably a lot of people don't think about that, that, oh yeah, 10 minutes a day, like anything, you do anything 10 minutes a day, you're probably going to be at the top right echelon of probably anybody in that thing.
Yeah, I'd say 10 minutes on Sundays is what I preach, that's, but shucks, when you're on the phone, and we spend a lot of time on our phones talking or staring at it, but why not have a fly rod in your hand? I have the yarn rod inside. I have cats, which we talked about earlier, and the cats love to chase that thing around. And so, sitting on the couch, you can do it. Or if you have your headphones in and you're listening to music, you might go out in the backyard and spend 10 minutes.
Yeah.
30 minutes is too much, Dave, as you well know. 10 minutes. Nobody casts for 30 minutes in a row on the river or otherwise. So, keep it reasonable. Keep it to a limited time.
Where do you get that? Where can you get one of those yarn rods?
Oh, a great question. Many rod makers. There's the Reddington one, the Joan Wolf Fly-O, which is the original one, from Lee Wolf, which is I have.
Echo used to have one too, I think.
And Echo is the one I use most often.
Mm-hmm.
MPR, micro practice rod. Shut in there in that $40 to $50 range. It's a priceless. It's what a great Christmas gift for any of your fishing friends.
Yep.
Pretty inexpensive. Certainly if a guy that that doesn't cast very well that you fish with.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
We're going to send some people to Echo, and I'm not sure if they're still having.
Oh, they do.
They do? Oh, good. Well, it's cool because, obviously we've done quite a bit on casting, had Tim on. We've been talking. Hopefully we're going to get Steve on to bring.
Resource. Oh, yeah.
Right? Talk about casting, some of the best, right?
Those guys practice. Brian O'Keefe.
All those guys, right? If you ask them, I'll bet you they'll say the same thing. They all practice.
Yeah. Professionals practice. Pro football players, pro golfers, professionals practice. People say, I can't believe you still practice. It's like, I'm a professional.
Right.
Yeah, I can do it with my left hand. It's a great way to learn left-handed casting. Yeah, professionals practice. Those who are at the peak of their game never stop practicing.
Yeah. And are you left-handed? So do you utilize that on the water?
Oh, absolutely, I do. Yeah, years ago, I'm associated with the Rio brand and fished with Simon Gosworth and all those great cats at Rio a number of times. And I saw Simon, switch hands in a situation. I said, holy Toledo. I said, how long have you been doing that? He said, since I was a kid. I said, what did your parents do? He said, they had a casting school. I said, well, that's it.
Oh, that's right.
But when I saw Simon cast with his left hand, that's when I said, I'm going to. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I've been doing it now for, almost 20 years. And I'm at pretty accurate 70 or 75 feet left-handed, meaning I can land it, within a foot, depending on the wind. But yeah, a foot at 75 feet. I'm much better with my right hand. But my right arm and elbow and shoulder, you don't really want to work as well anymore. So that's really forced me to do that. Plus, what a great asset in your game. Another tool in your box if you can cast with both hands.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great tip there as well. You don't have to be just right. And then you think about the spey, right? That's kind of the same thing. Using both hands on top, right, is important, which is not everybody, including myself, which I'm not, I'm not great at both hands on top. It's one of those things.
I forced myself, to do that.
So good. Okay. Well, let's, like I said, take it back. Let's just think somebody is out here. It's December, late December into January. Somebody comes into the shop or they're calling you and they're saying, hey, we want to fish the Missouri. What do you tell them for that time of year?
Oh, find the slowest, deepest water. If you want to go catch some, let's put on a nymph or two. And so that would be right now, 4 to 6 feet, no split shot, just something modern. Tungsten beaded flies are so effective and so narrow, and that European style nymphs.
Yeah. So you don't need split shot when you're fishing nymphing.
No, because you're fishing the slowest, deepest water you can find. And meaning, 4 to 6 or 8 feet deep. You're fishing. Yeah, those fish do not want to move. They're all piled up. They're in a huge ball. You have to put it right on, they're not going to move. They're not going to move more than a couple inches to eat that fly. So, yeah, and that's where those fish are. And we just spend enough time in there rowing around in circles until, you target a couple and you get some action. And then once you find that ball of fish, you can catch them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they are not moving. No, shucks, if they're ubiquitous, spread all over the river at 55 degrees, at 35 degrees, they're in, 2 or 3 spots a mile. Obviously, there's some fish spread out, but
But the majority are in what, just like deep holes at the bottom? I mean, they're feeding, right? So they're probably not all.
sort of feeding. Metabolism slows. Yeah. Reason, if I don't nymph any longer, but it certainly did for 20 plus years, something pink with a tungsten bead on it, and then a sow bug.
So what's a sow bug? Is the sow, what's that bug?
So it's a aquatic, but it looks like it's the sideways version of a scud. A scud has things linear up and down. His legs are below him and his shell is above him. And,
Oh, right.
and a sow bug is flat. Like you took some pliers and pinched that scud and you'd get a sow bug.
Sow bug, right. So you've got that one on there in the winter.
Sow bug is our number one selling nymph in today's world.
No kidding. What's the name? Did you just call it in your shop just a sow bug?
Oh, yeah, tailwater sow bug. There's several derivations. Yeah, I sell thousands and thousands and thousands of dozens of a sow bug. We sell hundreds of thousands of flies in our shop. That's our number one product, flies. It's a fly shop, says it on the sign out front.
Yeah.
And they say a rod shop. We're a fly shop, a reel shop, a spey shop, a T-shirt shop, a hat shop, but we're primarily a fly shop.
Right. You guys have lots of flies.
Lots and lots of flies. Yeah, 1,400, I think, bins, which, used to be kind of a big number. It doesn't seem to be anymore. But, my top 10 flies, I'll sell, several thousand dozen of the top flies, several thousand dozen of the best flies.
And so the sow bug is one of the, what would be some of your best flies that you're selling thousands of dozens?
Oh, any of these, obviously modern perdigons now, and some sort of small beaded, tungsten beaded derivation of a mayfly. So any of that, a lot of that stuff out of Colorado, any of those small, narrow-bodied mayflies.
That's just like a sow bug. Kind of looks like a little bit like
Ray Charles.
What is it?
Ray Charles. So like your original sow bug was kind of a Ray Charles. That's a sow bug. So just fluffy on the sides with a little flash, or black on the top, and it wiggles. Yeah, tailwater sow bug, kind of a rainbow tailwater sow bug would be our number one seller. Beaded or not, in a 12 to a 20.
And who's the Ray Charles? Who invented that one?
Shucks, that's I used to know that, Dave. I don't any longer.
Because that's a great. I'm trying to look at him. Look at the fly now. It's quite. I guess it's because it's a little flashy.
I don't know. Yeah, no, it's a swimmer, just like your scud. You see them if you stare at the the aquatic vegetation subsurface for within a minute. You will see sow bugs and scuds moving around in between the Illadia and watercress. They are ubiquitous. They are everywhere. Yeah, it surprises me, when you pick up a bundle of weeds here or any thing off the bottom of the river, whether it be a rock or weeds or mud, there are so many bugs subsurface. It just shocks me that anyone would ever rise, a fish would ever rise. You can just stick 20-inch rainbow, just sticks his head in the aquatic vegetation and moves it left and right and just opens his mouth.
That's right. God, so why do they rise?
I don't know.
But they do, right? You guys get a lot on dries.
We do, yeah. June, July, October would be your primary months for that. June, you have the caddis, you have the PMD, and then July, you would have caddis, PMD, trichos, obviously terrestrials. But those, trichorythoides. And then spring and fall, you've got the Baetis, and then we've got some anomaly hatches as well. We've got a little bit of March brown for, 7 to 10 days. We've got a brown drake, and again, just a few runs for 7 to 10 days. What else? Oh, Calabatus in the late summer, early fall. We don't have a wide variety of insects like your East Coast rivers would, but we have a lot of few varieties of insects. Good spinner fall here for a trichorythoid. The tricho, would be an insect every square inch. A good spinner fall for a PMD would be, one every 2 inches. So that kind of stuff. Blanket hatches. Yeah, where just like the subsurface deal, there are so many insects that if your presentation isn't perfect the first time, the fish sees it and he doesn't eat it.
Yeah, right. If you're out there fishing one of these hatches, again, practice, right? Casting and making sure your presentation you're getting a good slack cast.
Some sort of slackline presentation is imperative here. At the beginning of every hatch, the fish are super stupid and they'll do dumb things. I like that first 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
I like those aggressive fish. They get pretty wise after that. This is what I talk about a lot. This is what I think about the most is what we're going to talk about here, Dave. I will tell you the way to not catch them is to do the Hail Mary.
Right.
People like to Hail Mary. Professional football players, they do not throw the Hail Mary on the very first play of the game.
No. In fact, you almost never see the Hail Mary. And the thing about the Hail Mary is it almost never works either.
Very low percentage. But I see that most anglers, 99%, Hail Mary every single cast. They do not learn anything from the previous cast. They don't. I use also the analogy, if you were a hunter, I'm not a hunter. I used to shoot some birds as a kid, but I haven't done any ever big game hunting, shoot a deer, an elk, or otherwise. It would be analogous to walking into the woods and then seeing a deer and then just raising your rifle to your shoulder and just start popping off shots. I mean, just like lots of them.
Right.
Your buddy would say, "Hey, Dave, what are you doing?" And you'd say, "Well, I'm hunting."
Like, I've got this AR-15.
That's not how you do it.
Yeah.
What do you mean? And then just raise your rifle up again and then pop off some more shots. Just keep popping them off. And if it doesn't work, just keep trying. Just keep popping them. You would never, ever, 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 ever entertain or do that. And that's what most anglers do when they approach rising fish.
Yeah.
So we're headhunters. Our name of our shop is named for the behavior. You have to stalk, and you have to just like shooting a deer. The first shot's usually the one you get them on. It's not the 29th or 117th shot.
That's right.
So I have a technique where shucks, the fish is rising. You can see him. A rising fish, you can see the fish rising. You can see all the variables. You can see the fish rising. You can see the fly floating. And you can see the drift, the fly floating through the drift. None of the information is the secret. You guess with the fly. That's where you guess. Educated guess. You don't guess with your cast. Most of the fish we cast out here are 20 or 25 feet away. Mm-hmm. If I asked most anglers in the morning if you could cast somewhat accurately 20 to 25 feet, I'm pretty sure that 99% of the males out there would say, "Oh, yeah, Mark. Yeah, I've been fishing longer than you've been alive, son."
Since 1972, Four Wheel Campers has been building tough, lightweight campers designed to fit almost any truck. Whether you're after something minimal like me with the Project M or looking for a fully equipped camper ready for your next off-grid adventure, Four Wheel Campers has a solution for every outdoor enthusiast. You can head over to fourwheelcampers.com right now and use the builder tool to see which topper, slide-in, or flatbed is ideal for you. Yeah. How much is that trout, the 20, 25 feet, when they say, most of the males say yes?
99.9% would say yes.
And then do you think 99 are actually doing that?
I would say 0.9 point. I'd say 0.9. I've been reflecting quite a bit after 25 years, and that is the one thing I still am the most shocked about. Not only the behavior when you approach a fish, but the 25-foot cast is not a long cast. It's not a long cast. But for people to execute that is nearly impossible. I attribute all that back to how we've taught nymphing, how we've taught this entertainment kind of fishing, where casting accuracy has gone to, okay, throw it to the left. And people say, like, where left? You say, oh, just left. Yeah, I'll do the rest,
Oh, right.
Certainly, yeah. The guide, it's his fly, it's his depth, it's his drift. He's rowing. He's dictating all the mends. He's dictating the cast. So none of that is really spawned from the angler. Their role is to hold on to that fly pole. And so I understand that. So dropping the rod tip, not completing the cast, that's the number one flaw, I think, of anglers when they're learning how to cast. They've forgotten we've taught them how to have success without using a cast.
Yep.
You have a fly rod in your hand, but are you using it? So that's where that stems from. We can have success without making a cast. So dropping the rod tip and not completing the cast, not stopping the rod cast on either the front or back cast, the fore or aft movement, you cannot be accurate at all. In fact, the line doesn't do anything you want it to do because you're driving it to the ground and then creating, of course, this wide open loop. And then that's not very aerodynamic nor efficient or effective. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way the education model that we follow today in fly fishing is different than it was 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 years ago.
Right.
So I think this dry fly fishing thing, Dave, is very, very difficult for a lot if you come from that school.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I think that's the challenge. I mean, in dry fly fishing is, I think, tough for me. It's tough for a lot of people. I think nymphing is obviously 80% or whatever it is of the time fish are feeding under the surface. But dry fly feels like it takes skill to do anything, right? All this stuff takes skill. But to dial in dry fly fishing seems like maybe it's more rewarding. Do you find that with people that are on your boat that are maybe new to it, maybe you've done a lot of nymphing, and then they start to dial in dry fly?
I do have an occasional. I had some guests this. I rarely fish with that kind of guy anymore. I would argue that most males already have the skill set to do it. They choose not to. So if you watch a guy cast when he's nymphing, I mean, the false cast, you watch a false cast, rod tips moving in a straight line is perfect. Their false cast is perfect. Everybody's false cast is perfect, which, as you know, but not everybody knows, that the false cast is the cast. The only difference is when you stop the rod, when your presentation cast, just like you stop the rod with your false cast, you let go of the line after you stop the rod. That's how you cast.
Yeah, right. Stopping.
So everybody exhibits the right behavior already. They just choose on that last cast to, our male ego or whatever drives us to do that. Chromosomally, we ram that rod tip, we accelerate the rod tip and we make a round motion and we stop the rod tip parallel to the water, which really means that we're decelerating the rod tip. We're not accelerating the rod to a stop, which is how you cast. You accelerate the rod to a stop. You don't decelerate the rod to a stop parallel. It's analogous to throwing a dart, or a football or anything like that. You don't. And and it's strange about the fly fishing thing, Dave, is that if we had a football and you handed it to your buddy and you walked 30 paces away and you wanted to play some catch or a baseball or any ball, and the third time that you threw it, it landed in front of you 7 feet and bounced. It didn't go the 30 feet to your buddy standing over there. Would you make a change in your stroke, in the throw? I would argue that every single person on earth would make the change. In fly fishing, we don't. We don't make the change. We just do it rounder, faster.
Right.
Yeah, and we generate that energy by, ramming the wrist and the pole down to the parallel to the ground. And that is the Achilles heel of the entire operation. So having said all that, that's why it's incredibly difficult for most to achieve some sort of dry fly excellence or success without some fundamentals.
Yeah, the fundamental. And that goes back to you said, the 10-minute yarn rod or just the practicing, getting that dialed in and practicing your acceleration and everything. And maybe getting a casting instructor.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a huge advocate. I'm a casting instructor. I see my casting instructor 5 to 10 times a year. I still do. Yeah, Bruce Richards.
Oh, Bruce Richards is your casting. Nice.
Bruce and Simon are my two. John Harder, Zach Dalton are my casting gurus in my life. And my business partner, John Whitney Gould, works for us on staff as women's world champ, has become just an unbelievable single-handed caster as well as a two-handed caster. So, yeah, surrounding yourself. We have a casting lane at the store, and we spend a lot of time in it.
Oh, you do? So you have a casting lane like in the store or outside the store?
No, I'm sorry. No, in the store's 574 square feet. So you hardly even to cast a practice rod in it.
What's the casting lane?
Oh, we have a 10-foot swath of grass adjacent, parallel to the fly shop that's 90 feet long. And yeah, for, demo rods and stuff like that cast. But also, we encourage all the staff to cast 10 minutes a day. Go out there, and put a fly rod in your hand and learn about all the fly rods we sell. It helps you sell some stuff if you're familiar with the product. Yeah, casting lane. Yeah, it was one of the very first things we implemented.
Yeah. And so this is great. So on the dry fly, that's part of it is obviously the casting. Let's just kind of on the water again, let's talk about the hunting. Maybe take us there. What are you doing? Are you in the boat always? Are you out of the boat? What does that look like?
Both. We're fortunate to have such a wonderful, easy wading river, Dave. This is not slippery. It's the antithesis to the Deschutes, where, you step in the water and you could go down at any moment. This is small pea gravel and Illadia weed, so it's some aquatic vegetation and then very small pea gravel. So, I mean, most of the time in the summer, most anglers are wearing, flip-flops.
Oh, really?
Or some sort of fishing shoe, yeah. So this is a shallow resource, so half in the boat, half out of the boat. You can get a lot closer in the boat.
Right, and that's why the spey works so well, is you can just fish long runs out there, easy wading.
Easy wading. Yeah, long, sweeping spring creek. I mean, it's the world's largest spring creek is one of the analogies. And
so how's that? So it's the world's largest spring creek and it's a tailwater. Or is that just because that is the tailwater?
Yeah, no, it's just those are two of the names that you would use to describe this. It is a tailwater. It doesn't have constant temperature. It's not a bottom feed, bottom release. This is a top feed, bottom release. So Ours, it does not stay at the consistent cool temperature like the bighorn would.
Oh, okay.
The bighorn would be, shucks, 52 degrees all 12 months and maybe dips a little bit. Yeah, we have up to 70 and as cold as 36 or 35. But the nature of the river is very easy wading. So you could do either. Access from the shore is excellent as well for the top 8 or 10 miles. But in the boat, in or out of the boat. I tend to be out of the boat more often at this point in my career. I like that as well. Sneaking up on them and doing that kind of thing. It's just so nice in the summer. It's just so nice to be standing in the water anyway.
How do you sneak up on them when you're out of the boat? I'm just trying to picture what these, where these fish are at.
Quietly. Yeah, just like you were hunting a deer. Yeah, they can hear you and they can feel you and they can see you. The beauty in the boat is, fish have conical vision.
Yeah, which means they can't see. Yeah.
Yeah, you can be under their cone of vision in the boat. So they can't, so you can get exceptionally close. When you're standing, they can see you. Most of the time in the boat, we're sitting. If you're standing, you got to be about twice as far away.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be in that 40 or 50 foot, not that 20 or 25. So either way, access them. We're down and across. We fish downhill to them. We don't fish uphill to fish. We can. It's very, very hard to do. It's, my business name for my outfitting business is Get the Drift Outfitters. Here, the drift is number one. While I make my mortgage payment selling flies, it's the drift. I don't believe in fly pattern. I believe in drift. I think they'll eat almost anything on the first drift, truly within reason. I mean, I fish the Adams. I fish that parachute Adams a lot. 12, 16, or 18. 12, 14, 16, 18. Sometimes a 20, but rarely. We fish a cripple and we fish spinners. So the dun is not the adult fly is not a big player here, whether it be a PMD or a trico or even a caddis. But the spent, so dead or dying or crippled are the two primaries. Yeah, emerger, I guess, would come in third. Dun would come in fourth. Nymph would come in first if you want to catch them.
Yeah. For the dry fly life cycle, you're saying the crippled or the spent.
Cripple or spent, absolutely number 1 and 2.
Yep. And that's just because they're just more keyed in on these big hatches. It's easy.
Well, there's so much, we have the embarrassment of riches type deal. A dead or dying insect, a dead insect does not move. Fish does not have to chase it. LaFontaine buzzball is my favorite fly, which is analogous, similar to a Griffith gnat, which is a dead decomposing, bits and pieces of dead decomposing bugs stacked on top of each other is what it emulates.
Oh, wow.
For these, we have big eddies here that trap all these dead insects. And so it traps air underneath. I mean, it's a palmered fly. It doesn't have a wing, so no negative reinforcement with a wing profile. And it traps air underneath just like your palmered fly would do, whether it be your elk hair caddis is your classic palmered hackle fly. So we chop all that stuff down. We want flies that lay in the water, not on the water. So no high floating stuff. Unfortunately, we don't get to see many of the flies that we throw. Yeah, anything you would use on the Deschutes, anything that Randall Kaufman would have created for fishing on the Deschutes. Boy, that's dating myself there. Today it is. Anything you would use on the Deschutes to float would not be a fly choice here. So spent wings, but with that LaFontaine buzzball, palmered fly, it's all palmered hackle on it. And, Bivisible is another one, or a Renegade, those kind of flies, those classic, those all work really, really well here.
And describe that, the palmered hackle versus what would be the opposite of a palmered hackle?
Well, shucks. I mean, palmered hackle, usually use palmered hackles. We cut them, so we cut them down to gap length. So we're not 1.5 or 2 gap length on a traditional dry fly.
Right.
No, we want the thing to sit in the water. The beauty of the palmer, well, because they're eating dead and dying, decomposing insects. That's their primary topwater diet, is dead, decomposing.
Yeah, even though there's thousands of bugs out there that are dipping or coming back, they're still not focusing on those.
No, you just see literally billions of duns float over their head.
Yeah.
Dun's going to fly away.
Right. It's too much work.
It's windy and sunny here in the summer. 12.4 mile an hour is our average daily wind speed out of the south-southwest. 12.4 is our average daily wind speed. So if you can't cast a 3 mile an hour or better wind, again, fundamentals are going to be important. But, you want something that the beauty of some sort of fly that lays in the film is there's bubbles and stuff trapped underneath. It looks like decomposing. So the proteins are being broken down in those flies already. So not only does it not move, but some of the work has already been done for that trout. So when he ingests that fly, some of the proteins are broken, easy to ingest, doesn't move. Those are 2 important things for fish.
Easy pickings, because they're kind of overall kind of lazy, right? They don't want to work more than they have to.
Oh, just like, a dog in a room full of cheeseburgers. I mean, he's going to eat the one that's 15 feet from him, but he's going to eat all the ones in this really close to him first.
Yeah. So you're fishing one of these flies in the surface, and is that where the drift? Maybe talk about that. How are you making that drift properly?
Well, the first thing you have to approach quietly. You have to do just like a rifleman at a range. You have to understand what's going to happen before you get there. The way I do it every single time, my technique is I never make the first cast of the trout, ever. That's the Hail Mary deal. You can't Hail Mary. So if you picture a fish rising, let's say, on the bank, and that fish is 6 inches from the bank, and he's feeding on a little rivulet, a seam line that pops off the bank. There's a stick in the water, and he's feeding. The bugs are coming down the shoreline, and they're piling up, and they're focusing on this seam line, and that's where that fish is going to be. I don't make that first cast in there. I make my 5th or 6th drift in there. So I start adjacent to him, beside him, not above him, not on him. Most people like to practice right on top of the fish's head. That'd be like going to the, shooting around. How many shots around the deer's head does it take before he moves?
Right.
I would argue 1, and sometimes he might not move, but the 3rd or 4th, he's going to start saying, boy, there's an issue. Same thing a trout will do. He understands there's black and white is either food or not food.
Yeah.
Predator or not predator. Those are the 2 things that are in animals' heads. And so I make the first cast, several feet to the right of him if I'm casting to the left bank, 4 or 5 feet. I don't have any line off my reel now, and I'm pulling off some line. I'm just going to learn. I'm going to take the 2 minutes of prep time to understand the drift before I make the presentation on the fish. So I can do that adjacent to them. They're so close to the surface when they're rising like that. Their window of view is shucks, something the size of a coffee saucer. So 6 or 8 inches, maybe, their cone of vision. So they don't see, most everybody likes to throw, it's not a freestone where you throw the fly 15 feet above the fish's head. And then by the time it gets there, you've got everything figured out and stuff like that. And then the fish eats it. No, I'm trying to make a 3 or 4 foot drift total.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch a fish. I'm not trying to catch 7 fish in a drift. I'm trying to catch a fish in a drift. It's a lot harder to catch 17 in one drift than catch 1 in a drift. Way harder. So I move a line over, 6 inches. I move the line over 6 inches. It's my 4th drift. I move the line over 6 inches, and I'm pulling out a little bit of line. I'm not going to have too much line out there because when you're throwing 20 to 30 feet, you have to shoot line. It's another complaint of mine that every single person likes to shoot line every single cast. Not very accurate. You don't know where it's going to go. Plus, you drop your rod tip. So anyway, yeah. So let's say the 5th drift, I'm 6 inches from him. I have learned. Oh, and along the way, oh my goodness, that fly gets pulled in when it gets closer to that seam, or that fly gets pushed out when it gets closer to that seam. So I've taken that couple moments to learn to prepare myself for the presentation. So very important. It allows the angler's heart rate to slow down a little bit. There's a lot of pressure, like pulling you out of the stands in an NFL game and bringing you out to the 40-yard line and say, okay, kick this field goal through, kick this ball through do I have any time to practice? No, it's not like that. Yeah.
Right.
This is, why don't you take the 2 minutes to catch the fish as opposed to the 35 minutes not catching them? So I will say again, you would never do in business what you do in fly fishing. In business, if that you got a job and you're working for this outfit, on the first day you get several instructions, very black and white issues. And day 2 at lunchtime, boss comes up to you and says, "Hey Dave, I'm gonna have to let you go." And you say, "Oh, why?" Very simple equations, black and white equations, you still do not understand. In fact, you don't even try to improve. I'm gonna have to let you go. If you did, would literally get let go on Tuesday. You're like, "Sir, you're a nice person, but you don't follow instructions." It's very simple. Don't, black and white, don't touch the hot stove. That's what you don't want to do.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, so I move it over incrementally. If I'm 6 inches away, I literally pull 6 inches more line off my reel, Dave.
And do the same cast.
And I'm trying to drift it 3 or 4, 5 feet, 6 feet on the outside. So I'm throwing it, 18 inches in front of him, and I'm pulling it out 18 inches below him. And if you want to let it go to 2 or 3 feet below him, that's certainly fine. I have made the perfect drift, or I'm 4 inches from him. Now I don't shoot line, so I strip in that 4 feet and I hold the fly line, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm holding it in my left hand if I'm a right-handed caster. So I don't shoot line. So I am absolutely operating on my side of the trout. If you picture a bell curve, you guys know what a bell curve is. I only cast to the front side of the bell curve, to the center line. I never try to catch the fish on the back side of him, on the bank side of him. Why would you do that? That's slow water. It's not going to drift there. So understanding what I'm going to do first is important. And then once I get that casting length template made, the right distance, now I just pull in my 3 or 4 feet or 5 feet what I drifted. I count it back in. When I strip it in, I go 1 foot, 2 foot, okay, 4. I hold it. Shucks, now I can make my adjustments by just stopping my hand 4 inches closer to the fish, or 8 inches closer out in front of me, or stopping it, closer to my shoulder. So I can actually make the adjustments with my hand. I'm not shooting line. I'm not guessing. None of that is guessing. Now I can replicate the same drift over and over and over and over, and he's going to eat it because good drifts near fish catch them. It doesn't actually have to be right on his head. If it's 4 inches to the right or 4 inches to the left and drifting perfectly, fish swim. They move. They swim. They will swim to it. So now you're just giving yourself an opportunity where you're casting consistently well, drifting consistently well.
Yeah.
And then I just repeat that over and over and over. That fish is going to find it. Plus, he doesn't get negative reinforcement for dragging the fly on his head. And it doesn't matter if you're 4 foot short, and the wind knocked it down. It matters a lot if you're 4 foot long. Now you've told the enemy that you're in the neighborhood. And once you tell the enemy that you're near, things get way harder.
Yeah.
I move. I don't always. Some guys like to stay there till they catch them. That's not my game. My game is let's go catch some. When you spook the deer because you shot and hit on the ground in front of them,
yeah,
go look for a different deer.
How do you know you spooked? Is that just they quit rising? Is that how you know you spooked them?
They don't quit rising here.
Oh, they don't?
That's the thing. Yeah. They just won't eat your fly. You do have an opportunity to catch that fish by changing the fly at that time.
What would you change? If you spooked the fly with something, what would you change your fly to?
The 6 flies I fish in the summer would be an Adams, an X-Caddis, Craig Matthews X-Caddis, and a 14 or 16 downwing lays in the film. It doesn't have hackle on it. Rusty spinner, so a PMD spinner or a PMD cripple. Mm-hmm. Or a Griffiths gnat, a derivation of a Griffiths gnat, a cluster midge. Quigley has a really nice cluster midge with a hackle stacker that you can see. So Griffiths gnat, LaFontaine buzzball, X-Caddis. Oh, we have a fly called, it's not our fly, but a spent caddis, which works really good. Trout Shop used to have a really good one, Pat Elam. But now we use a translucent emerger. It's a solitude fly, and it lays on its side. It's a junk fly. I mean, our primary topwater diet for our trout is, bits and pieces of decomposing bugs. So spent PMD, spent caddis, spent midge, or piles of body parts.
Oh, really?
Well, that's what the buzzball, orange dye grizzly, orange dye grizz, and medium done. It's just pure hackle, and it's chopped off the top and bottom to lay in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, it's pretty much a bunch of hackle that's kind of trimmed and clipped, similar to what you're talking about with some shaggy looking. What is the hair? Is that muskrat?
That's all hackle, LaFontaine buzzball. Yeah, incredible fly. Originally, in proven patterns, it calls for Coachman Brown. I had an opportunity to several whiskeys with Gary LaFontaine.
Oh, really?
Oh, shucks. Everybody comes to the Missouri, Dave.
No kidding.
I've met and talked to all of the tailwater greats.
Who are some of those? So Gary LaFontaine's one of those guys. Who are some of the other tailwater greats?
Oh, Sylvester Nams, Sil Nams, soft tackle. You're a soft tackler, so Sil Nams, Nemes, yeah. John Bailey, Skippy Gibson. I mean, all these cats.
What was Gary LaFontaine like?
Oh, he worked at the Trout Shop Cafe, and all these guys would come in the fall and stay. The river used to close like October 1st. Yeah, and I would stay as well. The river wouldn't close, but the Trout Shop, which is kind of the primary operation in the 90s. Yeah, and they'd stay at the lodge, and I just stayed at the lodge. I worked there, and just long conversations about fly design and about flavors of whiskey and about so like swinging soft tackles. Like I remember Sil Nems talking to him. Gosh, he would stay at the cafe. He'd come in on his white socks on, and I'd make up some non-dairy creamer and American cheese, and then make up a cheese sauce, and we'd dip chips in that cheese sauce. And I'd ask him, like, okay, show me how to tie on that soft tackle again. So we tie flies, just all kinds of, just an opportunity. I just feel so privileged and fortunate to be here on this river at that time when that kind of discussion was happening and fellowship and mentorship. Huh. Yeah, and there's many local mentors as well. It's really formative time for the Missouri, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, people have been fishing it for a long time, and it feels like it's obviously busier now. But back then, there was one fly shop in the 90s, or was there
Yeah, the first fly shop on the river was, it might have been Pete Cardinal's Missouri River Angler, and that was just shucks. He had a couple bottles of Gank and 25 flies, and He was an outfitter, one of the very first outfitters here as well, and just a kind of a part-time shop. Then up in Wolf Creek, Neil Streaks has written a couple books about this river, and a great author and great, again, learned a lot from Neil. Small Fly Adventures in the West is what he wrote, which is about the Missouri and at the Smith. So there's another great resource. But that's Montana River Outfitters. Craig Matson owned that shop. So that was in 77 is when he started.
Oh, wow.
Trout shop in 89. Yeah, it was the trout shop was the second fly shop. There's 6 now.
On the Missouri or in Craig?
And then, yeah, shop in Great Falls and a couple shops in Helena as well, 45 minutes on either side of us.
That's right. Yeah, you guys are right. Like you said, the epicenter, you're right in the middle. Craig is kind of smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, there's 3 fly shops in Craig.
Is it really? Is that how small Craig is?
Oh, yeah, 1 paved road.
No kidding. Wow. So there's 50 people, residents that live in Craig.
Yeah, it might be less now.
And there's 3 fly shops.
There's 3 fly shops, yeah. The Orvis shop and the trout shop's been here forever. All next door to each other. Yeah, no, we're 3 in a row.
Wow.
Yeah, 1 bar, 1 restaurant. Our mechanic just died, which is unfortunate, long-time resident and attorney. She's retired. So the attorney and the mechanic are gone. Now there's 3 fly shops. So we have a brew pub, a restaurant, a bar, a weed shop, 3 fly shops, and that's it. Yeah, lots of stinky fishing guides, of course.
Do you remember you probably remember this. I mean, we've talked about this over the years, but the river runs through it, right? The early 90s. Was that what were you doing when that was like mid 90s? Where were you at in that time? What stage were you in?
Oh, I was, yeah, absolutely around. I've read the McLean book. So Wolf Creek has that's a big scene. And that's where the bar and restaurant where everybody gets all buzzed. In Wolf, they drive over to Wolf Creek. That was the original larger town. There's Taft had a whistle stop in a presidential campaign in 1910. Wolf Creek was kind of the hub at that time, and they had several businesses. But this is for supporting kind of the ranching and farming communities here. And Craig had a water stop and a mercantile store, and so sheep and cattle or what drove this community until fishing. Wolf Creek has a fly shop, which was Montana River Outfitters. Now it's called Wolf Creek Angler. Trade changed hands here 10 or 11 years ago. So 1 fly shop. There used to be 2 fly shops in Wolf Creek. Dan Kelly had a little fly shop there as well. So
wow.
Yeah, a couple fly shops have come and gone, but the 6 here now are pretty solid.
This is good. I love getting the little lowdown on kind of just that, the history and everything. It's awesome. Let's take it back on the water, and we'll kind of wrap this up a bit. So we talked about a ton of great tips here to get people focused. We talked about the practicing. So when you got that fly, and the drift is the key. So you're floating it down. You're trying to work it. You get it right in that zone. Anything else we should be knowing about if we're trying to get that fish? And can you tell, are you picking out a specific, like, okay, that's the larger fish, that's the smaller fish?
Yeah, I have binoculars. So 2-3 sets of binoculars now in the boat. Generally identified, certainly the speed, if it's brown or rainbow, but usually whether it be a male or female.
How would you tell that, male or female, from?
Oh, jawline, head, forehead.
And can you tell size at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sucks, so we're 20 or 25 feet from them. And I have, wide angle, binoculars made for bird watching, short. And so wide and short. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you can tell if that's an 18-inch fish or a 25-inch fish.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and we're just trying to cast a big one.
You are. Sure. What's your big one? What's your definition?
Oh, anything over 20 or over. Occasionally you see some 25-inch fish. I haven't. Oh, boy, a number of you. I probably haven't seen a 25-incher in 10 years. Me. I got almost a 25-incher a few years ago on a demo cast. Yeah, and then broke the guy's rod. And 20-inch fish. Oh, there's 1,500 20-inch or over fish per mile here.
1,500, right. So, yeah, lots of big fish.
Yeah, a lot of big fish. Yeah, you catch them on the nymph, but that's you're just throwing, into a ball of fish, and you're going to catch those numbers. You can go target those. Shucks, if it's a 16-inch rainbow and there's nothing else around, absolutely we're casting at it. But, yeah, well, absolutely. Spending time, when you come into fish and drop the anchor, an educated angler or a guy who wants to catch a couple is going to spend 10 minutes watching.
Right.
He's not going to just old bull, young bull.
So you guys aren't necessarily drifting down the river and, like, as you're drifting, hitting a spot against the bank.
You can absolutely do that. That would be a stepping stone on the way to head hunting.
Right. You can get fish that way, right. But you guys, sounds like you really like to focus on a pool or a spot where you can anchor up.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is tailor-made for it. I mean, so in June and July, dawn till dusk, Dave.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
And even probably later, right? You probably have to, do you have to stop fishing Can you fish in the dark out there?
Yeah.
You can.
I used to when I didn't have any friends.
Yeah. So June, July, when you say summertime, people must be just jacked up out there, like not even sleeping.
Well, no, yeah, fewer people dry fly fish all the time, which is really a huge benefit for me.
Right. So you're not seeing lots of people nymphing, but you're one of the few people.
Oh, 99.99999. There's fewer dry fly fishermen since we've started this conversation.
Right. And right. And what you're saying is that the Missouri River where you guys fish is perfect for dry fly fishing.
Yeah, nobody, all your fishing guides here came and never left.
Wow.
Our guides here don't also fish the Madison and the Yellowstone and the Jefferson and the Clark Fork. No, guides here fish here. Where I go fun fishing, I go to the Yellowstone to fish a size 6 grasshopper. Because I like a fly I can see, because so often we fish flies we can't see here. So that's what I do for certainly entertainment. No, this is dry fly Valhalla, man. There's nothing like it. There is nothing like it. Well, it's like going to the Henry's Fork, except for having a lot of fish rising, or going to the Delaware and having not just 3, but 300 that you can see. I mean, like pods of 5 to 50 fish. This is
epic.
Yeah, I write a daily blog,
Yeah, you do. That's right. Yeah, talk about that. So the blog, I saw that. You post daily, and where could people, you have your blog page?
Headhuntersflyshop.com. Yeah, I've written 6,500. We're the most updated fishing reports, updates, education pieces. Yeah, all of that stuff. So let's see, I wrote one. They have a sale going on. So I wrote a squala sale. Fishing report at least once a week, but even once or twice a week in the winter. But in the summer, 2 or 3 times a week. Updated fishing report, flows, hatches, all that stuff, how-to stuff, and then just me writing, stream of consciousness fishing stuff or otherwise. Yeah, so 17 years now. We post. I used to post 400, but now we post 300 times a year. So when you're going somewhere, don't you want an updated fishing report? You want something?
Yeah, well, you want to we say that a lot, like a resource. I always think about that. Okay, how do somebody's think about the trip? A good way to do it is to call you guys, get a guide, right? Maybe get whatever. But if you can't do that, I would think reading your blog, over those hundreds would help.
And you can find, shucks, if you're interested in coming during the PMD and you want to learn how to, some PMD information. I mean, just in the search bar inside the website, you can just type in PMD, and literally 427 articles come up about PMD fishing. So an unbelievable resource now at 17 years doing that. Used to be daily, but I don't do it daily anymore. But I do 6 days a week.
That's enough. Well, we talked dry flies here. You mentioned the trout spey. We're not going to get into that deep today, but you said just maybe on timing, it sounds like nymphing, yeah, you can fish whenever. And then what about the spey? Is that, you said, more of fall? Is that when guys are doing it? And why is that?
Soon as the insects leave is your better spey fishing. We do swing soft tackles for Betas and for caddis and for PMDs. But your spey season would be November 1 through mid-May, through May 15.
And what is the typical fly you might tie on in that period?
Some sort of derivation of a black leech, or some sort of flashy, bighorn river colors. So yellow and gold and brown, like a Crelex. If any of you guys are familiar with the Krenix product, the Crelex.
Yeah.
Skittish smolt.
Okay. And what are you imitating? Are you trying to target browns or rainbows?
Yeah, just whoever bites it, really. But bait fish are a leech, injured bait fish or leech.
Yeah.
But black woolly bugger, thin mint. Shucks, we sell a lot of, I call it woolly bugger, but I guess it's called a thin mint now.
Okay. Yeah, thin mint. Okay. And then is it just you get your skagit line with your tip, whatever you get down, and you're just swinging like you would for steelhead?
Yeah, we're using 5 in the winter. Like a 5x IMO tip, intermediate with 5 foot of T8. T11. Rarely are we in the T11 range here. Yeah, or full sink. Guys with streamer using a full sink line now to get a little bit deeper. So yeah, it's interesting to watch the evolution of the angler here and the evolution of the technique with the streamer and or the spey rod. Spey rod, really an unbelievable tool. Yeah.
3 foot. What is it, like a 12-foot?
Oh, we're throwing like 11.5 foot 3 weights, 10-9, 11, 11, 3, 11, 6, 12 foot 4 weight. 4 weight just seems like it's overgunned here now.
Because that's more like a 4. What is that, more like a 7 weight?
6, yeah. So a 3 would be analogous to a 5 or a 6. But, I'm throwing a 1 or a 2 with soft tackles for, it's late September, October, early November. Just having a great time. Shoot, when that spey cast falls apart, those rods are light enough and small enough where you can single-hand cast. You can Give yourself a little respite from sucking with the spey cast.
It's almost a switch rod, right? I don't even know if we're still saying switch rod, but
Correct. Oh, yeah, we don't, but it is a switch rod. Yeah. It's really fun to throw a 10.5 foot, one weight, 85 feet. That's really cool. Yeah. If it doesn't hit you, it goes out there a long ways.
yeah, one way. That is crazy.
It's so fun. So that spey thing, and then single-handed stuff after that. We have weeds in the water column, and that really.
Oh, right. When do the weeds start?
Oh, July 1.
Yeah, and then when do they end? When does that go away?
Oh, October 1.
Okay, so that's why the November is better for swinging. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they just get off the insect. The fish aren't concentrated on insect, and they like the bait fish or leech.
This is great. So pretty much you got the boats, of course, but I mean, yes, whether it's swinging, spey, weight access is good. Is there pretty good public access?
Incredible. 8 miles of both sides of the river. I would say the access here is better than any other river I've ever been on.
Right. And in Montana, the cool thing about Montana is it's also known as one of those public access, right? So as long as you're in the water, you can literally fish. Even if there's a cabin right in front of you, you can fish there and be standing on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a 12-month resource here. Right? It's one of our greatest. And, the two huge things that I always talk about are 12-month resource. Also, we have fishing here for every skill set, whether you're a beginner or a 150-day-a-year guy. We have challenges at every level, whether it be ranked beginner for deep nymphing, shallow nymphing, dry dropper, dry, and then, of course, stripping for the streamer, and then swinging for the spey rod. So really, multi-discipline and multi-season and multi-skill set. I mean, it's really appropriate for all of those classes.
Right. God, this is great. Well, I feel like we're going to leave some stuff on the table maybe for next time. Maybe we'll dig more into some of this. But I think you got us fired up for the dry flies for sure. I think that's always thinking like, okay, the next trip wherever, I'm thinking dry flies is...
June and July. Yeah.
Yeah, June and July. So is that the time if you had to pick one time, June or July?
Yeah. And it's the busiest time. I mean, it's the best time and the busiest time. This is a huge river. You can still find some respite. Really, it's a big river, and there's side channels, and it's long. And some days when it feels really crowded, boy, if you're staring at the bank and watching a couple of fish rise, nothing else is in your window of view. I mean, you're in heaven, really.
Yeah, it's perfect. No, this is so good. I think we'll kind of leave it there, and I think we'll be looking ahead at, maybe putting something together out there. What would be your takeaway from today? Maybe give us one takeaway from people listening. We've talked dry flies, talked a little bit about everything. If somebody's thinking about this trip, what are you leaving them with now?
Oh boy, anytime you can come is a great time. It's not a terrible thing to have a practice rod.
So right now, if it's December, if it's Christmas right now, today was Christmas, you could literally probably go out there and have a good success.
Oh, yeah. When it's below zero is really about the only time. 15 degrees out, there's a couple of spey guides out the other day, and 15 degrees that, you get ice in your guides. That's where I draw the line. But I'll still fish for an hour and a half with ice in the guides.
Right. Still isn't going to stop you. So sounds like you still have that passion. You're still guiding after all these years.
I had a little break a couple of years ago mentally. I think about fishing, as you probably do too, for 12 months every day is a little overwhelming. But I am just, some of the dry fly seasons, the last couple of the PMDs have been so great. I haven't been more excited in 15 or 20, Dave. I'm counting the days until that June 4th, 5th, or 6th when the PMD arrives. That's my favorite, is the PMDs.
The pale morning dun, which is and you love that. Just why is that hatch stick out to you?
That's when your biggest brown trout will eat a dry fly.
Right.
Yeah, it must be candy to them. Yeah, it must be sweet. Yeah. That is really what keeps me here. Will keep me here forever, is that 6-week PMD period. That's when you see the most non-local locals come. Guys have been coming for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. They come for the PMD. Yeah, and early trico, but PMD for sure.
Cool. That's right around the corner. It's as we're getting here, we're coming into December. It's going to be winter, but I mean, that's only going to be 6 months away, right? It comes quick.
It happens. Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, Mark. Well, I think we'll send everybody out to headhuntersflyshop.com if they have questions or want to connect with you guys on a trip or all the resources you have. But yeah, I just want to thank you today for digging into this. This has been awesome. Have heard a lot about you, and I'm excited to share this with everybody, and I appreciate all your time.
Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate it. Yeah, all my best.
All right, amazing episode. Love that one with Mark. You can check out right now show notes if you want to go to wetflyswing.com/698. You can get the show notes there, get links. You can subscribe to our newsletter if you want to check that out. You'll get updated when new podcasts come live. That's a good way to keep in touch with this show. Also, head over to Headhunters Fly Shop and check in with Mark. If you're heading out to that way or if you have any questions, that's the best resource you got right now. Check in with Mark and see what he has going. Please follow this show if you haven't already. That's another good way to make sure the next episode's delivered right to your inbox, whether that's on Apple Podcast or on Spotify or whatever app you're using right now. Check it out and take it away right there. All right, I think I am going to leave it there for the day. Got a big day, a big week coming here. We're around holiday season, so that's always fun. I hope you have a great holiday season. I hope you have a good year looking ahead, and I hope you get a chance to get on the Missouri This River. Look forward to talking to you on the next episode, and I hope you have a great morning, a great afternoon, or an amazing evening, wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. See you then.